shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatterspodcast1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good evening, welcome to the NUFC Matters 3 Amigos on Friday night. We'll see how the lads are going to roll with it. I'm sure they'll cast no shadow and not look back in anger as we look back at the last 7 days at Newcastle United. And hopefully this video won't be taken down for any inappropriate flags. It is welcome to the co-founder of Dubai Sports Dentistry, Mitch, the one-eyed naval architect, War George, CBE, and good old Steve. How are you doing, lads?
Fine, thank you. Fine.
Good stuff. Yes, the Oasis begin their tour tonight. Lots of shows planned. I'm going to one in a couple of weeks' time. Let's hope they're still together. Then and what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, it is always up to you in the chat. We like to get your questions, and some of you do like to get them in advance. I have got a great one from Dan, which I will come to in due course, but we don't speculate on players coming in on this channel. But Elanga has been the subject of another bid from Newcastle. It's across all the news outlets. Elanga has been quite prevalent on social media with not just one, but two of our players. Obviously, Alexander Isak, good friend of his, and been away with Asula. It looks positive, Mitch. It does look positive. I have already seen, no surprise when you look at our fan base, negativity I guess towards the signing and people saying this and people saying that. But hypothetically, Mitch, if we did manage to get Elanga, it's still a big if. We don't know the ins and outs of it. Is that a good signing, Mitch? Is that somebody who would improve the squad? Does he improve the squad? I think he does. I think it's an upgrade on Murphy. I think it's Premier League class. I think he scores goals. He has defenders on the back foot. I personally think it's a good signing if we can get him.
I don't think it's even a question you should be asking, mate.
Yeah.
It's really weird. We have this thing within the fan base. We want signings, but not that signing, and don't pay that much for him, and we don't want that. Well, make your mind up. What do you want?
Yeah.
It's quite clear that Premier League proven players come with a premium. If you look at his stats, and there's lots of people who want to rattle stats off left, right, and centre, and you know what my feeling is about pure stats is that within football sometimes they're total bullshit. But if you want to work with his stats, in the last 2 seasons he's had the most assists out of any right winger in the Premier League. And can you imagine a front line of Gordon, Isaac, and him? The pace, the ability to go past people. We've been talking about wanting something different to what Murphy brings. Well, what's different with him is pace. and strength. He's about twice the width of Murphy and twice the pace of Murphy. And I think if you look at what you want to get out of a player, he also plays with Isaac at a national level. So there's no concern about interaction and how they get on. You can see him on a holiday with a Sula, so I suspect when it comes to the checking out the personality side of things, I don't think there's any problem about him settling into the squad. What more do you want? And yes, it probably comes a little bit of an excess about what would you actually want to pay. But then that reflects back on the people who go, just pay the money and get him signed. Well, no, that's what a negotiation is about. It's about getting a player in a way we might have to pay the right amount of money or the same amount of money, but we might be able to layer it or structure it or do it with conditions in the way we can actually make it work for us in a PSR perspective, because that's still there, and everybody has to remember that. So from my point of view, looking at how that works, I think if he can be wrapped up around about the kind of money they're talking, I think he's an exceptional signing for the squad. And anybody who had doubts about Gordon coming in, for example, for similar money, should just, again, go back to that and say, right, where do you stand on that now? I'm very happy to be proven wrong if I've got doubts about a player. But actually, he's a player that I don't have that much doubt about, because, again, as Benny's saying here, I've got a very good mate I went to university with and I lived with for a couple of years, who was a Forest fan, who was, when I speak to Matt about it, he's gutted to see Elanga coming to us, but thinks Elanga will thrive in our system, and thinks he's a Howe type of signing, and that he has attributes that Howe can develop. And how many times do we come back to that? How many times do we come back to Howe making more of a player than what we've got? And so I think it's not as trite as trust the process or trust the process even. It's more like go with the signing, see what he delivers. The statistics say that actually he's delivering already before we get to it, and so let's run with it. I think be a fantastic signing, and I think we're talking about wanting players who can make a difference in certain games, who can have impact or who can change things. And we'll be missing that. There's so many games we've missed that so much. And Elanga, I think, is one of those type of players.
Okay, Steve, his fitness record is there for all to see. Lots of people quoting it in the chat tonight. 38 games, 38 games played for him last season. 36 out of 38 the season before. Starting to pitch in with goals. Better assists than quite a few in the Premier League. I think only Salah above him and probably Jacob Murphy. But overall, that aligned with the friendship that he has with two of our current players is a big plus point. So I guess this is the one we all hope comes in.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. 23 years old, fits the bill, as Mitch says, absolutely perfectly. Has experience in the Premier League, 113 Premier League games he's played for both Nottingham Forest and for Manchester United. Manchester United obviously thought something because he's been on the books with them since a youngster. He was pushed out at Man United. They got £15 million for him because they had Garnacho, who was coming in, who was slightly younger, and they thought was a better prospect, and the lad was moved on. That's the way it goes in football, I suppose. And what he's done is he's taken his opportunity at Forest. I think what he brings is a different dimension to the wide players that we've currently got. He's right-footed and plays predominantly on the right-hand side. He's more of a sort of winger that'll get to the byline and get crosses in, as well as breaking very, very quickly because he's got speed to burn. And I think what it is, it's like these different options that Eddie likes. I think the days of a player staying on for 90 minutes for 38 games is long gone. And I think next season we're going to see an awful lot of, if we get the quality in that we're looking for, we're going to see an awful lot of changes and movement from Eddie in terms of his match-to-match selection. And I also think that you've got to be very much on the ball in the Premier League now, and you've got to have that ability to sort of, change your tactics at will, change your style of play, but also, have the option of either cutting in from left and right or going down the byline. And it's interesting, we talked about that middle of last season where we said, very few teams at the moment are actually getting to the byline and getting crosses in. And if we've got speed to burn, and we've got speed going down the middle with Asula if he's available, and with Isak, these are great options to have. And I think that it's a statement signing for Newcastle United. It's probably a good deal for Nottingham Forest, given everything that's gone on with them over the last couple of seasons. Bought them for 15 and looks like they'll end up picking up 55. So, it's a good deal for the lad, and it's hopefully a good deal for Forest and a good deal for us.
Elanga is not just the right midfielder. He can play on the left. He's played down the middle. His age fits the bill, and will have the fitness for 2 games a week. Back the lad now and trust Eddie's business, says Sean George. It's a vote of approval, I think, from everyone on the panel tonight, and I wouldn't be surprised if you give him a glowing endorsement as well.
Yes, absolutely. I've enjoyed seeing the bits of him that we've seen this season. But the other things is about him as a person. When a youngster is it somewhere like Manchester United for a lot of years and it gets shoved out, it's not unusual for them to dip and lose their career a little bit. But he hasn't. He's done the reverse. He's picked himself up and started all over again, and proved to Nottingham Forest what a good buy he's been, and proved to himself what a good footballer he is as well. So I like all of that, and I too rejoice in the fact that he already has strong relationships with a couple of our staff, our players, and so the mistakes that have sometimes been made with other people coming in, I don't think they're going to be made with young Mr. Elanga. I look forward to seeing him. He's a useful dovetail, actually, with Jacob Murphy when you reckon we're going to be playing 2 games a week in European Cup. If it means on the right side, there's an opportunity to, if necessary, to switch them during games. But there's also an opportunity to alternate the selection. Somebody in the league and somebody in the cup and all that sort of thing. And he brings. With Jacob Murphy, got particular types of skills and a lot of hard work, but with Elanga you get just that little bit extra, that little bit more tantalising skill and being able to break defences down. So they'll dovetail. I'm quite sure that you'll see Eddie using both. He won't just rely on one. I'd just look forward to him coming in, and if we get him at the sort of price that's being talked about in the current market, that's not a bad price anyway. So let's see him, and look forward to seeing him start the season.
There's always 2 sides to a coin. Craig says Gordon, Barnes, Murphy, Sanusi, Cordero, all right-footed. Now Elanga, 0 left-footed players. No way to change things, just like for like. It's Craig's opinion. Troll says calling Elanga a statement signing's taking it a bit far. None of us have done that. But he is a good signing. But a statement, no, not at all. Yeah, I think an improvement on Jacob Murphy is what he is, Trolls. But I think his fitness record, his age, and the point here that Phil Shuttleworth mentions. Tell me one of the squad that he hasn't improved. It's a good question, that makes. I struggle off the top of my head to think about anybody who hasn't improved. If I was to say, maybe the kids coming in from the academy, maybe those who've been given a chance to train with the first team, none of them have come through, but it takes time. And I think as well with the youngsters coming through, that's still growing. So, sometimes Eddie may want to bring them through and get them involved, but he'll be given some advice and guidance by those behind the scenes. Bunce, for example, will probably have a big say as to who can make that jump and how they can do it. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, Lewis Miley, probably stood still last year, but that was more to do with the fact that he couldn't get past the midfield of Tonali, Bruno, and Joe Linton. So, that wasn't through the efforts to try. But yeah,
and
go on,
surely,
Mitch.
sorry, two Mitches.
Yeah. I'd moved over to Mitch by then, George. Sorry, you can have your say in a minute, though.
Well, look, Miley started the season injured.
Yeah.
And so that was a hindrance for him in terms of knocking on the door. I think the biggest challenge, if what I understand and have learned about how Eddie runs the first team, is for young players coming in, understand everything about their role in that team and what he expects them to do in certain situations. And it's not as simple as you're playing in left midfield and get on with it, son.
Yeah.
And so being able to understand exactly what your role is in exactly what situation may explain why, for example, it took a little while for Hall to get into the team and be there on a regular basis. Why they've taken that time with a Sula. And they've given him certain situations in certain positions when he doesn't have to be thinking about everything outside of what he's doing. He's got one objective or two objectives, and that's all he has to focus on. And so to expect somebody to come from the under-21s into that and then integrate themselves into a potentially complex situation. We're talking about this a number of times about Eddie not having a plan B. He actually does. He has a B, a C, and a D. However, it doesn't necessarily necessitate a formation change. And people have to understand everything they're being asked to do when he wants a certain change. And if you don't have that entire playbook at your disposal and at your tongue tip when it's requested, then you're not going to start. And you're not going to play a big role. You're going to come off the bench, maybe. And that's how, to be fair, a lot of the under-21s and younger should be integrated into a team, in my opinion. I see it a lot in American sport. I see it a lot with American football and how to learn a playbook. I mean, God, when I played American football for the Senators and for, say, combined UK universities, we had playbooks that were complex, but nothing near what you would have at college level, and then going to NFL level is in another level again. But understanding what your role is in certain situations is exceptionally key, I believe, to what Eddie Howe does. And so the question about which players has he not developed, I think it's more like which players have not been able to integrate themselves or apply themselves in a way that Eddie Howe demands. And those players who've been able to apply themselves in the way that Eddie Howe demands have flourished. Joe Linton has become something of a phenomenon in many ways. He was an also ran centre forward signing, and now is a midfield powerhouse built like a cruiserweight boxer that I wouldn't like to meet in a bad mood on a Friday night. And there's so many other things here that players can come into the system and learn from. Miley this season, Sean, you're absolutely right. After what he's done, bearing in mind that I think there was a period, not last season, but the season before, where Lewis Miley was the glue that held our midfield together in about 6 or 7 games, and he shouldn't have been. He should have been nowhere near that midfield. But he was. In Dortmund, when I was there with Stu, he was pretty much the one man that held that midfield together. And he was 70-year-old, man. And I think he has an opportunity going forward this season to say, right, I've had my time. I've done my apprenticeship. Let's get me into this team on a better basis. And I think we've got many opportunities. I think again, if you look at how Tonali was managed with his time out, and then came back in like he'd never been away, and that's everything to do with how he's been coached and maintained and managed for me. So I think whatever we do with bringing anybody in, they are inevitably going to get better. That's what history tells us.
Okay. I mean, I'm just pointing, Steve, at this comment. I think it was Trulls again. Yeah, Trulls. Longstaff, Target, ESM weren't improved by Howe. I've got to say, Longstaff was improved by Eddie Howe, but then found himself replaced. Trulls in the chat. Target
Sorry, I'm going to jump in here. Why
injured.
did Tonali then say in a recent interview the most underrated player in Newcastle United is Sean Longstaff?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point, which I'd forgotten about. ESM didn't want to know Trulls. ESM, I know, was a big fan favourite of some, but he was a lazy so-and-so who was only interested in himself and not interested in the team. For me,
I'll jump in. If people knew what we knew about ESM, what we had passed to us about ESM, they'd be going mental.
Yeah.
Correct?
True. Yeah, true. I agree, mate. I agree. 100%. Yeah. Steve, yeah, I mean, Eddie Howe does get the best out of players. And again, we know that he has very, very high standards and expects players to be, at a certain level. He's admitted it, on many, many occasions, and people around him know that. So from your perspective, Elanga coming in will also see the opportunity to get better, I guess, and he's already good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's what it's all about. It's about continuous improvement with a 23-year-old. You're not the done deal. So you mentioned that somebody mentioned Matt Target, and he hadn't improved him. Matt Target came in; he was revelation when he signed. When he came in on loan, with a £15 million fee hanging over him if we wanted to keep him, which we did. But then Target, very similar to Miley in a way, when you're out with an injury, it's difficult to get it back when the players around you and the players within the squad that the manager's also improving hold you out. And so you look at Tino, you look at Lewis Hall, you look at Dan Burn, you look at Trippier. They all kept him out of the team at various points, and then he struggled to get back in. And you could say that his career's almost petered out at Newcastle. But during that half season, that first season that he was here, when we picked him up on loan from Villa, I deny anyone to say that they weren't impressed with him and that he wasn't putting in performance after performance. Lewis Miley's very similar. That he struggled because of injury. The only doubt I have about Lewis Miley is that he seems to, when he's got an injury, he seems to be out for a long time. He had to drop out of the England under 21s, I believe, through injury. And let's face it, he's hardly played a game this season, and yet he's out through injury. And he started the season injured. It looks like he finished the season injured, but he's managed to finish the season injured without playing. And I wonder whether or not Lewis's problem is a growing pains type of problem, if you know what I mean. He seemed to have a massive surge in bulk and in height, and he was one of those players that looked bigger than everybody else on the pitch, and that's why he stood out. But having seen him playing in the under 18s over a couple of seasons before he broke in, he seemed to be treading water. And I was surprised when he broke into the squad, but he broke in because he had that growth spurt. But whether it's then affected him, I don't know. I hope he's right, and he does get a place in the squad.
There's a similarity there to Elliot Anderson, isn't there? When he had the back injury after he trained so hard to get back in, had a great pre-season, then was out for weeks with a back injury, and they put that down to growth and overtraining. And I suspect there's a similarity there with Miley.
Yeah, and I think at one point somebody actually did say to me that the physios thought he had one leg longer than the other. He thought his one leg had grown quicker than the other leg, and it's these tiny little things, having to do things with a pair of football boots and put something in just to get you the balance, just to rectify those little things like a hamstring strain or a calf problem that can occur. And this is what James Bunce has brought to the equation, because I mean, scientifically, he's a watcher. He's not just a physio. He's a guy who watches all of that dynamic of a player, the way he walks, the way he runs, the way he moves. And I think he's also one of these, and he's got players, people within his medical team that can spot things before a player even knows that there's a problem. You know, you tell by the gait of a player. I mean, God knows what they would make of a Chrissy Waddle these days, you know, with the hunchback and the way that he ran or something like that, you know. But, you know, they'll probably have these doctors on the side, these scientists will probably have a heart attack thinking about it. But that's what these guys are doing. And this is the benefit that we're getting, because this season we did quite well. We didn't have players out, you know, long term in the numbers that we had the previous season. So that was a big positive. Yes, we've had, you know, the likes of, medial ligament and ACL problems that, you know, there's nothing you can do about them. Once an ACL goes, you know that the player's going to be out for a year. And unfortunately, we had that with Botman and we've had it with Lascelles. And that's just the nature of football. But in terms of the strains and such like, you've got to look at, let's use him as our perfect example. Bruno played every single game last season, you know, remarkable. And then he goes away and he's playing every game for Brazil. There will reach a point where a player can't do that anymore. You know, there will be an injury that will crop up, but it shows you what these guys are like, you know, the advice and the dietary control that they have within them, and the self-control, I suppose, as well. And all of that sort of blend is the sort of thing that impresses Eddie Howe. And I'm sure he's done all the homework on Elanga. He'll have seen all we've seen is a little exercise video of him running up and down a gymnasium and doing huge big steps and amazing sprints. But we saw that with the SM in the summer, though. We saw him running out in 35-degree heat on his holidays down in the south of France, running up hills and chasing cars and stuff like that. We didn't see much of it when he was actually on the pitch. He was a strange character, and I think the difference between, say, an Elanga and an ASM may well be down to the fact that you have a player who wants to learn and wants to improve, and then you have a player who thinks he's already improved and thinks he has nothing to learn. And that's what, you know, that's the difference possibly between the two personalities and the two sort of characters that you might have in Elanga and in ASM, if you want to run a comparison. And I know which one Eddie Howe would prefer, because let's face it, we all know which one we would prefer if we were the manager of Newcastle United, in terms of the personality. Yes, ASM might have been great in the changing room, and he might have been a good laugh, and he might have been giving everybody watches outside the ground, and you know, he had a fantastic card game that the fans were all embraced with. But he was one of those, when he's good, he's very good. When he's bad, he's horrid. And we used to put it down to because he was French. You know, that's the way he was. But I think it was more to do with the fact that mentally he just thought he was all there. He thought he was the bee's knees. And he wanted to be the big man in the squad. And I don't think Eddie's the sort of manager who allows that.
Gary Milligan's last one to know if he can sort her out already, Mitch.
It's one of my specialties.
Right, okay, there we go. There's the answer. Gary, contact Mitch when you get out there. George, what's your feelings about Eddie Howe? He does improve players.
Well, I think I've said it over and over again, that when people start to doubt that, they just look at that squad. And I think it's still 9 who used to be in the squad when Bruce was a manager. And most of them, Bruce wouldn't even play. And we're talking about the Longstaffs. Was a period of time where he wouldn't even talk to the Longstaffs, never mind play them. So, you know, the fact that they've come through all of that and made progress under Eddie Howe is just incredible. Not indirect, directly have obviously saved Newcastle a lot of money, because if we'd had to fill those places with tried and tested Premiership players, it would have cost the club an awful lot of money. And go back to Lewis Miley, we do tend to forget it was the under-19 international squad he withdrew from, and we forget that that's where he is. In that season, when he came back at the beginning of last season, I couldn't believe how he developed physically, his body and so on the pitch. And I suspect that he's been nurtured and nursed quite deliberately by Eddie Howe and the team, because that's where he is. And I'm still of the view that they've managed to find a yard of pace for him, and it looked like they were getting there before he was injured. We'll have a world-class player on our hands. So, that kind of improvement we can expect from any player. And Elanga looks like the sort of player who wants to learn as well, which is good news on all fronts. And it's it seems to me we're in a very strong position in my view with players we bring in. They're generally well researched and generally know that if they've got it in them to improve, they're coming to the right place to improve. And I don't think that's a message that will be lost on players who are thinking of coming here when they talk to our squad about how things happen here. I mean, even the under-21s tournament that just finished, I was amazed to find that Tyne Livramento confided that Eddie Howe rang him every day to talk to him. You know, what's happening? What are you okay? You know, etc. etc. Well, you know, that's above and beyond as far as I'm concerned, and just shows where the thinking of the club is at the moment, and I think that's great.
Last year, apparently, you did the same with Gordon as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yes. Especially when it looked like Gareth Southgate had snubbed Gordon, and it was patently obvious when he seen Gordon, he looked a bit down in the mouth, and I think that's what Eddie Howe got involved for, because he wanted to pick him up again and remind him how good he was, because clearly the England manager, I mean, rumour has it was because Gordon had said something out of place in the dressing room, wherever that was. But on the other hand, we were desperate for something to happen, and we had a player sitting on the bench who could make things happen and never even got the chance to do it. So, yeah, I think all the things to do with the way Eddie and his team run the squad will appeal to any player that wants to learn and wants to get more involved.
Yeah, I just say Anthony Gordon's problem was that he couldn't ride a bike like Shola. That was his problem, if you remember. Yeah. But while we're talking about Lewis Miley, because I mentioned him earlier, there's a player way back in our history that Lewis Miley reminds me so much of. Silky skilled, can put his foot in when he wants to, can spray a ball around, can be relied on, but didn't play that many games for Newcastle United, and that's Nigel Walker. Now, some of the older people watching will remember Nigel Walker. Sadly passed away. Must be 10 or 11 years ago now. But a great footballer. Very well liked by many people. But it was just that
too good looking by half.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was that. But it was a case of back in that at that particular time, he was too good for that 1980 squad. You know, when you look at the players that he had around him, he was too good for that team. And he also, I think the manager was probably 80. That would have been Bill McGarry. You know, so he was up against Bill McGarry, and he was not a Bill McGarry type of footballer, was he? You know, but that look, I'd be interested to know what people thought, because those who can remember Nigel, because I think that's the sort of that's the mold that Lewis seems to have come from. Tall, can spray a ball around if wanted, can win a ball, can look the part on the pitch, can do everything effectively, has a goal in him, but it's like maybe he needs a bit of a shake to get him to that next level. So sorry, Gary, I wasn't going to mention Kevin Dillon.
Just finishing up on this little topic that we've been talking about. Just looking through lists of players. I mean, Lascelles, he improved Lascelles. Lascelles had, he took the scruff of the neck when Rocker came in, but he did okay. Injuries have blighted his last couple of years, of course. But Jamal Lewis didn't work out at the club. So, I could agree with Jamal Lewis if that's who you mean. Matt Target, I've already mentioned, as Steve has, did very well when he came in, but injury and subsequent illness and stuff have curtailed him. Ryan Fraser, well, of course, we all know Eddie Howe and him didn't see eye to eye at the previous club. It was never going to work here. Matt Ritchie, I would say, had a good time under Callum Wilson, but under Eddie Howe, but like Callum Wilson, Father Time has caught up with him. Paul Dummett, who forgets, the infamous Man United away game where he played centre half. I mean, Dummett just couldn't get a look in because there was better players than him. But when he came in, that centre half performance in Man United when we won in the Cup 3-0 was outstanding. So again, injury curtailed him. I think Willock, Willock's another one who injury unfortunately has played its part, but when Willock has been on form, he's had a little run. So I do think that Eddie Howe has had a big effect on a lot of players at the clubs, including the ones who've gone on to do really well, like Jacob Murphy, like Joe Linton. So I think there's a big case for Eddie Howe's management skills. Really do. Go on, George.
Just to join in what you were saying, that there's obvious signs that some players, when they get in, you can see when they're switched on, and sometimes the change is perceptible. It was for me in Willock. I thought Willock was the rising star of the future when he first came, but unfortunately, the two bad injuries he's had have changed that a little bit. But the signs he was starting to come back towards the end of last season, and he has pace to burn, which is always useful. And the improvements in some of the others. I mean, Tino Livramento, for example, 21-year-old, and you know how I'm always on about this. He's right-footed, he's left-footed. Well, Tino Livramento played left back in a cup final against the best right winger in the country, so we're told, and didn't let him have a kick. Not only that, went down the left side, crossed with his left foot to our centre forward to score the second goal. I mean, that to me, that was me seeing some of Eddie Howe and the other staff, that coaching working out, because he played nearly for all England in that tournament nearly all the time at left back as well, and you would never have guessed it. So you can see signs of the development that Eddie Howe and his staff are producing in players, not just the younger ones, but some of the older ones too.
Yeah, what I would say, Steve, I would say that collectively, Eddie improved the squad, he improved the team spirit, and he improved the results. And there's three things that get you what you need. And whether you can sit there forever in a day and pick one or two players out, then people will argue they weren't as good or they weren't as bad or whatever. But collectively, as a team, there is no doubt that Eddie Howe has made us better.
Exactly, 100%. There is no doubt about it. Okay, well, we'll move on. As always on a Friday night, we do have a lot to get through. And if you are easily offended, it's probably best to leave the room, go outside for a quick jog. It is Tweet of the Week. And we'll start off with a few signs. A sandwich that tastes like sandwich with chicken at the Village Market. Certainly would avoid it at all costs. Just a chicken sandwich for me, please. Leonard's homemade sausage is the best 10 inches you'll ever put in your mouth. That's in America. Thanks, Jimmy. And please do not smoke weed and dump your ashtray in the handicap space. That's another sign from Jimmy. And this one, visit Uranus Food Factory. The USA's #2 attraction, 70 miles ahead.
Only 70 miles.
Only in America. It is a crazy country. Liquor Mighty Taco.
Oh, yeah,
there you go.
And I've heard of pet names for a Willie, but this guy is really advertising his lads. Pretzel Dog. And go around, if it was meant to go fast, it wouldn't be shaped like a brick. Great sign on the back of the car. Another hot dog one for the food lovers.
Yeah, me.
Oh, Jesus.
And family planning advice, always use the rear entrance, lads.
Yeah, me.
And they didn't think this water fountain through. And I love this. Good old British sign. Away to the toilet. Back in 5 minutes.
Yeah, me.
And starting up the summer business again. Serious inquiries only. Big yards, $25. Medium yards, $15. Just want to look, $5.
$5.
And please do something about the dandelions in your lawn, said this neighbour. 3 dandelions. Take as many as you like, says his next door neighbour. We've got time for a celebrity pick. Here we go. Jacob Morphy.
Oh, clever.
Yeah.
Very good. Like that. And a couple of lookalikes. Steve Hasty. Is
I was
Steve Hasty
waiting
really a Mackham?
I was waiting for this one. I knew as soon as I saw the photograph on Twitter this morning, I thought, I know what's coming. I know what's coming.
Thank Chippers for sending that. And this one as well. Mitch. Mitch's stolen budgie smugglers have turned up in Thailand. If only you knew,
that
Stephen
wouldn't be
Kennedy.
a surprise, but it really, in many ways.
If only you knew. Time for one of those Facebook
Yes.
names.
If only you'd been on the WhatsApp group last night.
If you get a friend request from this woman, don't add her. She's a pain in the backside. Am I right?
Hey.
And I will love a bit of journalism during the summer, and there is some great journalism during the season as well. Lee Ryder, Nick Pope has his gloves with him. Callum replied, I hope so, Lee, he's a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And what can make a man run away like this, lads? It's not run, it's ran, because it's past tense.
Oh, God.
Oh.
Hey! Alan Little sent us this week. He said, I can explain here. Stan Seymour Sports on Market Street had run out of Toon shirts, so my first footy kit was the Gooners. They won the double this year as well. Oh, Alan! What a classic! What a classic!
Absolutely.
Super Mac played for them. We'll let you off, Alan. And thanks for the confectional. Cartoon. I rented out the basement of Gots, says the bird. Very clever. And we do like a sing song on here, don't we, everybody? The kind you find in a second-hand store. Raspberry beret. There you go. Bit of Prince for you today, lads. And how about this? That's me as a coroner. That's me with a sharp knife choosing my incision. I thought that would go down with Dr. Neil. And this one, we're all about the bass, about the bass, about the bass. No rebels. You managed to chuck it in with the Star Wars one.
That goes down better.
It does that. Oh, great wise man, I must know what is love. Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. Whack. Very good. And white smoke means she's decided what to cook, says the husband. Black smoke means it's done.
Oh, brave.
And a few jokes this week. Thank you, all the lads and lasses who've sent these in. In particular, doing a crossword, I asked the wife, what's a 4-letter word for a female relative that ends in unt? Wife said, ant. I said, the Tipex. And Paddy pulls up at the traffic lights next to a stunning-looking girl. Paddy smiles at her and winds his window down. She smiles back and winds her window down. Paddy says, have you farted as well? And what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a spy. Why are you dressed like a shepherd? I'm a shepherd spy.
Oh.
2 Ronnies for you.
And a red Indian introduced me to his wife. This is 4 horses, I said. Wow, that's a beautiful name. What does it mean? He said, nag, 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 nag.
Yeah.
And Darth Vader's rarely photographed wife on this photograph, lads. Ella, Elevator.
Oh.
And one is an evil, ruthless individual who wants to rule the universe. The other is Darth Vader. Well, a couple of us will know exactly what we mean with that. And last Star Wars one for this week. Star Wars all-around jigsaw puzzle. Expert level. And we'll chuck in a couple of Star Trek ones. I was able to swim with the whales for free, but to swim with sharks would cost me an arm and a leg, says Spock.
Yeah.
And earlier, when John asked me if I wanted to pet his cocker spaniel, I should have chosen a spaniel, says Scotty.
No.
And do short people also start their stories when I was little, or did they just say, as I am today?
Yeah.
Good question. And here's another song. This charming grand. It's actually Steve Hasty.
I like that.
And very clever. Here's what happens in trees in the summer in Saltwell Park.
Stays in trees.
What happens in trees stays in trees. And Brits are illegally using fire sticks, warned about new risk when streaming Sky for free. This is an old one which I've just stumbled across. Let's not forget, the police couldn't find a man with half a face running around London, so I haven't got much confidence in finding Keith streaming Rotherham versus Stoke on a Tuesday night. I think we're all safe, guys, says Ray Hoggy. Another tweet as well. When I saw you, I was taking a bath. You what? I was taking a bath. When I first saw you, like I was stunned by your beauty. Do you mean taking it back? Yeah. And my son has been eating electrical cords. What do I do? Ground him till he conducts himself properly, says Jeff.
Yay.
And you have some emojis. We haven't had these for a while. Masturbation, men, women.
See?
Told you, if you were easily offended, get yourself out of the room now. And just met Lionel Richie, says Haley. I don't know whether Chris Kamara is going to be happy with that or not, but it's a good one. And as always, lads, it's a little bit of a treat for you. Here's a random beaver shot.
Oh, wow.
Says George. Famous photos. This one of a long cow.
Oh.
And how to write hello in Mandarin. I first attempted to write it in Danish, but they were just too delicious.
Yes.
The perfect pair of socks have arrived, lads.
Mm-hmm.
And for 7 months, this couple went to the gym together. And Jay Fool says, did the guy wait outside? And I think I finally found my spirit plant. And as we did last week, we'll finish up with a bit of this. Bond villains, when approaching architectural designs for your headquarters, ensure all ventilation ductings of a diameter less than that of a fully grown man. Good advice. Thanks for the tweets. Still got a load, Jimmy. I will be in touch when I run out. Okay, moving on to our next topic. I did promise you a question from Dan. He says, hi, Steve, loving the content over the close season. What do we want teams from the past 2 seasons going straight back down and the gap seemingly getting bigger each year? Have the American club owners already got what they want with the jeopardy of relegation now pretty much gone, George?
Well, you could say in some ways, but there's always that issue that somebody will break the rules, and manage to stay up again. And it would have been a disaster for Manchester United and Tottenham this year, for example, if any of the bottom three had managed to get a game or two together. I can't see the Americans relaxing with that notion. If they've got it in their mind that they do want it to happen, they'll push ahead with it as hard as they can. But I think that's the one thing I don't think they'll get away with. It seems to me the rumor about them wanting it in the women's league, for example, it's been around a year and a bit now, and still it hasn't happened. I'm wondering if they've had some kickbacks there that's kind of put them off. But with the situation now in the last 3 years does highlight that there needs to be something done between the top of the championship and the bottom of the Premiership, and how you even that out, I don't know, because it's like us being evened out against with the top six. You know, they don't want that to happen. I'm not sure they wanted anything to happen even further down. So it's a tough one, but it temporarily may have given the Americans what they want without relegation and promotion, but it can only be temporarily, because sooner or later somebody's going to try and upset that balance, and it might happen. So it's a big threat. It's a big threat.
It is a concern, Mitch, isn't it? When the three teams that come up tend to be the three teams that go down.
It shows a lot of the problems within the game financially at the moment.
Yeah.
I personally think if Americans thought that was going to be the case, though, they wouldn't still be investing in Championship and League One clubs. And they very much are.
Yeah.
My personal feeling is that the American owners think there will be a shift in the game in the UK, and we'll have a Premiership 1 and Premiership 2. And that will become a closed shop outside of the Football League. It'll be 2 18-team leagues, Premier 1, Premier 2. And all of the money, or most of the money in the UK game or the English game, will be funded towards those 2. And that would probably cover most of the teams who've had American investment in both the Premier League and, say, the Championship as it stands right now. And there are other teams who I think are quietly on sale at the moment who would have American interest. That could come into the equation there. And again, 2 teams of 18 in the Premiership 1, Premiership 2 would suit that very nicely.
Steve, thoughts on the situation we find ourselves in with 3 teams up, 3 teams down on a regular basis?
Yes, it's created a massive financial gulf. There's no doubt about that. And the fact that everybody goes down, it comes up, and I suspect it might happen this coming season as well. That can't be sustainable. That can't be good for the game. I don't think anything will happen until either the regulator comes in and forces the hand of the Premier League to support the Football League more financially, and they come to some sort of deal, or they're forced to. I mean, the sensible thing would be for the EFL and the Premier League come to a financial deal over the TV rights. But I suspect both of them have ulterior motives for not doing so. I think from a Premier League point of view, they're going, why should we? And I think they're also sitting in their back pocket. They've got the League Cup, and they're thinking to themselves, well, get rid of the League Cup then. Or we will, because they want less fixtures for the top teams because there's more European games. You just look at this season, I think it was 9, 10 clubs in the Premier League are operating in Europe. And I think they would love to see the league reduced to 18. And I think that not being in the League Cup would be, or getting rid of the League Cup would be one of the things they would look at. 46 games in the Championship is ridiculous as well, and then followed by the playoffs. But the playoffs are jeopardy, and the playoffs are entertaining, very, very entertaining from an EFL point of view. It's a big financial uplift, and it's one of the few things that the EFL have control over at the moment as well. The EFL have got themselves what they think is a nice little TV deal, but you know what? I'm not too sure. I think the crux will come in about 2 or 3 seasons' time when you've got Birmingham that have established themselves being up there or nearabouts, and you've got Wrexham up there or nearabouts. That's American money. Some of our other so-called big clubs in that league need to pull their socks up and sort themselves out. Sheffield United, perfect example. Another example going down this season will be West Ham. Southampton, they should come back stronger, but whether they will or not, or whether they'll end up doing a Luton, you're never too sure. It's a fascinating bunch of scenarios that you could throw into the mix. And I think at the moment it's a massive big game of chess that's being played. And I think ultimately it will end up with the Premier League being reduced to 18. But probably not until they get a few more American team owners in the Premier League. And that's where you've got to look out for the likes of Birmingham, who seem to be able to spend at will, and Wrexham. And let's see what happens. I think this season would be the crunch. If this ends up being the third season in a row where the three that came up went down, and it's quite possible, then I think you've got to seriously start to look at what's going wrong. Is it a financial thing? Is it a quality thing? Is it a dearth of players? Is it a lack of sound business sense and management? What is the reason why? Or is it because the gulf between the top and the bottom has just grown so much that you know what? Remember when we were in the Championship and quite a lot of fans said they preferred being in the Championship, they preferred winning every week and being in those games than the defeats and this type of thing. And I think there probably are clubs in the Championship that are like that. The ones that have come up, they haven't enjoyed it. I don't think Ipswich fans enjoyed last season as much as they would like to make out, and especially when it means that as soon as you go down, you lose your star player as well, and really is like a kick in the teeth. And I think losing Delap as has happened with them, it was inevitable because it was written in as a clause. But it must be soul destroying when that happens. When you get into that scenario, where you think you're building and you're not, you're having the sand pulled out from under you and the rug. But I think inevitable that something needs to be done with the size of the Premier League, or the Gulf. And I think there's more likely that it'll be the size than the Gulf.
Okay, 1,250 of you watching live tonight. Thank you for watching. We've got 700 not on Twitter as well tonight, which is great. Good to see you on here. If you're enjoying the show, then please search NUFC Matters on YouTube and hit the subscribe button. It's free. We still do 7 shows a week. I do laugh. Eamon says, Steve, can you and the lads tell me realistically how many first-team ready players you think we will sign in this window? It's a guess, George. I guess that he's looking for. What is your feeling? I still think Newcastle United will sign, and it's you're putting just putting a guess on the line. I'm going to say 3 ready to go into the squad players. That's what I think.
4 for me.
4
for me. I mean, I'll be honest. I'd like it to be 5, but I think if we get 4, I temper that with one other word: quality. If he was to get hold of 3 absolutely super duper people, you could forgive the quantity. But I would like to see at least 4 and hopefully 5 before we get into the season.
Okay, Mitch.
3 with signings, 5. With sales, 5.
All right. Okay, Steve.
5 quality that will come directly in, improve the squad, be there as almost first choice. I think that's what it needs to shake the squad up and to make those who remain to start fighting for the place and make the squad competitive. And you look at last season and when changes were made, they weren't necessarily made to improve what we're watching at the time. But I think that this season we need to have almost 5 starters, 5 who can come in and improve. If they're not starting, they need to come in and improve what's on the pitch during the game, and they'd be game changers. But I think that the likes of Al Ramayan and the rest of the board will be looking for, especially if we're going to be in the, want to compete in the Champions League, we'll be looking for to bring in 5 quality footballers, players that if they started on a Saturday or on a Wednesday or a Tuesday night, we would still be going, wow.
Okay, halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. Okay, welcome back to the Free Amigos. The fanzine, the final fanzine is on its way to all the subscribers. You should get that by Monday or Tuesday at the very latest. But please subscribe to next season so we can make a donation to Age UK Dementia once again. It is gone up slightly to £25, but that is free postage, includes your postage. We've knocked £2.50 off for those people who had to pay extra, which was most of you for the last issue. Shouldn't be any issues this time round. But yeah, great fanzine. Probably the best one, I would say. Some great articles in this from the lads, and well worth skimming through the book once it lands on your doormat this week. Don't forget as well, League Cup final rerun at the Tyneside Irish Centre. It's a free event, and it takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre Friday the 25th of July. All you need to do is go to the website to register. nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. We've only got 70 tickets left. 30 have already gone. And for everybody who registers, you have a 100 to 1 chance of winning that medal. You can see on there, it's a replica medal of the Carabao Cup and a lovely montage to commemorate the cup final win. So get yourself onto the website, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. I've pinned it at the top of the chat. And there is the replica medal that you could win. There'll be a couple of raffles on the night, and there will be a merchandise shop there on the night, but we're not asking anybody to pay to come. So there you go, a free event from NUFC matters. We also have some of these shirts back on sale now. We've only got 5 left. Cup final shirts signed by Isaac and Dan Byrne, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. And the T-shirts are back in stock. So if anybody wants a T-shirt, you can also go onto the website and buy your T-shirt. And that is all the business side of things. You will remember Tim Cairns messaged us last week about his son who was getting married. And he says, apologies, Steve, the cable arrived from Amazon late. I'll forward on the photo, but unfortunately after my son's wedding, still keep up the tremendous streams as they're a joy. Thank you. But that was him and his son on the day that we won the cup final. I still haven't seen the Pavel Schernicek one. I'm sure it's there somewhere, Tim. I just haven't had time to check the messages. But thank you for persevering, and I hope the wedding was a big, big success. I'm sure it would have been. Okay, as always on a Friday, we do have lots to get through. It's time for the day I met. Day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle United, past or present. Thank you to Moxie Mag for this one. Maiden Castle. That's me on the left with my mate and big Philip Albert for the day I met. Wow. What a jumper, Philip. Fantastic, that. Wonderful stuff. Maiden Castle. Remember that place fondly. Some great days there just going to watch the entertainers train. But if you have got a photograph you'd like to share with the masses on a Friday night, just simply email nufcmatters1892@gmail.com and we will feature it on the show. A bit of breaking news that's coming in tonight, not concerning Newcastle, but it's from John. He says Chelsea fined €31 million, 27 million by UEFA, with a further €60 million conditional for breaches of its financial rules. Aston Villa fined €11 million, 9.5 million, and 15 million conditional. Both club agreed. And
does it explain what the conditionals are?
Yeah, go on.
Well, does it explain what the conditionals are?
No, it doesn't. Steve will have a look. I'm sure Steve's having a look. There is some other breaking news, and that's that Sunderland have just signed 2 players from Villa, Dandelion and Burdock. Thank you, Gary. Always good to have a little bit of humour in the chat. Christopher says Branthwaite committing to Everton, Semenyo to Bournemouth, Williams to Bilbao. Against all the odds and rumours, great to see players staying on. Maybe there is hope that Isaac stays with Newcastle long term. What's your thoughts? Players do stay at clubs. There is a bit of loyalty. Talk about Mbeumo, George, potentially staying at Brentford and seeing out his contract because a deal can't be done with Manchester United or Spurs at the moment. Things could change. Transfer window's open until the 1st of September. But broadening it out, not just looking at Isaac. I mean, Isaac's still got 3 years left on the contract. I don't think there's any urgency. What's your feelings about, loyalty in football? Does it still exist, George?
In some cases, and when you get down to the money side of it, it gets down to how people enjoy where they are. And I think I've said even yesterday that it's clear from any videos you watch of our squad that most of the players, including Isaac particularly, when they talk about Newcastle, when you see them interacting as a squad, there's nothing there that suggests to me in body language or anything else that there's anybody unhappy. However, we've got to be realistic. We've got the hottest property in Europe at the moment. I would be amazed if at least our owners aren't under the guidance of Eddie Howe thinking about the near future, not waiting for his contract to run down in 3 years. I think that would be an insult in some ways. But to actually have a plan ready, what they can stick in front of them when it's time to do it. And I hope that's sooner rather than later. If Bueno has decided to do that, it raises my thoughts about him from his integrity wise, because all I've heard at the moment is that I want this, I want that, and I want the other. And when you add up all the sums, it sounds like a hell of a lot of money for somebody that's still got to prove themselves in some ways. So if he has had that second thought because they can't do a deal, then good on him, and it might pay him in the end, and he might get more like what he wants. But I think if conditions are right at clubs to make players and their families happy, then loyalty will exist. I don't think to me, it's at the end of the day, once you get past a certain level, you're feeding the tax man, aren't you, as well as feeding yourself. So, yeah, I think that where clubs have sensible systems to look after their squad and look after families, there will be a certain amount of loyalty around.
Okay, is the loyalty still left in football, Mitch?
I don't think so. Genuinely don't think so. Everybody will do what's right for them, and it's driven by agents and many other things. I find it fascinating that in Bueno, after everybody was wetting their knickers that we haven't done a deal for him and he's going to go somewhere else, he still hasn't gone anywhere. He's priced himself out the market. Yeah. And his agent's playing a silly game. And now they're trying to rewind that to make that look like loyalty. Sorry, doesn't work with me. Cynical old me looks at that and thinks, well, your agent decided to twist on 21. And now where's it got you? Because maybe Man United are in the dire financial position that their stupid part owner suggested the word Christmas when they were running out of money. Perhaps they are. Perhaps they can't. They can't do anything. Perhaps they need their cut of the Elanga sale to make something like this happen. And how ironic is that for the so-called biggest club in the world? Everybody wetting their knickers about us not making a signing needs to look at stuff like what's going on at Man United and think, hang on, pump the brakes. Let's just have a reality check. Why are the Mackhams signing players? Because they've got a massive leeway in PSR. They've just been promoted. They've just had a cash influx from that. They've sold two of their best players. And they need to sign players. And are they players that we would want? Well, we've not heard of half of them, so we don't really know. So, everybody just pump the brakes and calm down and let's see. But for me, loyalty went out a long time ago. And so it's more about what situation can agents and players get themselves into to make it more advantageous for themselves. And then when it doesn't go right, how can we twist this to look like we're still being loyal to the players and the club that's looked after us for so many years? So if we have to stay here, we don't look like idiots or Judases, because they will be hounded out by the right kind of fan base, or worked out by the right kind of fan base at that. And Brentford, I include, as one of those. They're not stupid. They know where they are in the world. And so it's a fascinating stalemate for some of them. And I think this is where clubs, agents, and more have to be inventive in the way that they go about structuring deals. If you want a deal to happen, it can be made to happen, but you might have to wait for your money. You might have to have the money structured in a certain way to make it work for whatever structure that the buying club has. And make no bones about it, Man United historically may still be the pull that they used to be, but financially they very much are not right now because of ridiculous signs that they've made, because of money they have wasted, because of the players they have on ridiculous wages who will stick their fingers right up their own arses and say, sell me, I dare you, I have a contract. See where you go from there. And I think we've done really well to avoid that. You know, again, if you look at what other clubs are doing and based on what they have allowed to go, what they've sold, what their financial position is, I'm not surprised that Man United are struggling to sign Bueno. I'm not surprised that Man United are struggling to sign anybody, because they've been frivolously reckless in what they've done financially over the last 2 seasons for me. And that was always going to come home to bite, ironically, with the PSR rules that they put in place to try and protect themselves.
Any loyalty in football, Steve? I can see you studying the fines just to get us a little update as well. So chuck that in as well if you managed to find the answer.
There is loyalty in football to a certain degree. It's what you term loyalty. You know, you could say that our former captain was loyal to us because he stayed for 10 or 11 seasons or whatever, got a testimonial which he gave to charity, only wanted to play for Newcastle United. But he was very clever as well, because it allegedly had a clause in his contract that he was always the highest paid player in the club. So that was kind of a bit of protection there. And I put that down to having a very, very good agent, or being very, very wily in his own sort of business acumen, and also his own ability. And I'm pleased he did. I'm pleased he stayed for the period of time that he did, because you know, he was world record footballer, and I think the days of like Shearer, you know, just with, then you look at maybe Jimmy Carragher, who, you know, was loyal to one club, but you've seen what that loyalty's done to him. It's made him very, very bitter about anyone who ever leaves Liverpool, you know. So it with loyalty comes a sort of license to slag off everybody else, sometimes with Carragher, or at least so he thinks. I think football's moved on since the days when George and myself started going to watch Newcastle United, because all the power rested with the owners and with the club, and you know, it changed in the early 90s. It did a complete reversal. It changed in the 60s and did a complete reversal to the way it was when there was the minimum wage. But then it changed again when the TV money started to roll in. So you know, there is an element of loyalty there with some people, but it's a short career, and players have to look after themselves. And I'm not bothered if a player leaves. I'm disappointed if a player leaves and starts slagging us off. It's quite funny. I listened to there was a girl who's just signed for Arsenal, and she almost went on strike to get away from Man City, and went to Arsenal on loan last season. And she'd previously been at Arsenal, and then she went to Man City. But then she came out with a statement when she was signed for on a free by Arsenal, which was, "Your fans are fantastic. I always wanted to be here." And I'm thinking, what about the poor fans that have just been worshipping you at Man City for the last 18 months or 2 years? And it's crazy little things like that when a player makes a statement. And I'm not picking on the girl for making it, because we've heard plenty of male footballers who have come out with exactly the same sort of rubbish. You know, 1 minute they're kissing the badge, and the next minute they're wiping their backside with it. But it's like they're playing a game when they do that to you, you know. And I think, you know, we worship them while they're here, and then when they move on, it gives us an excuse to boo them when they turn up. You know, if they haven't been loyal to us during that particular period of time, you know. But again, that sort of lack of loyalty tends to come with, or tends to be the price of the way that they were perceived either leaving, or they were perceived while they were here, or the way that the press have you believe their attitude was, because very few of us really know. But loyalty, they're only as loyal as they are when it comes to the wage packet, I suppose you could argue. But in terms of Chelsea, Mitch, you asked what the conditional was. Apparently, Chelsea have been fined 17.3 million for non-compliance with the earnings rule, and another 9.5 million for the squad cost breach that they had. But there's 52 million pound hanging over them, which will roll through the next 2 to 3 seasons, because the condition that was set down when they agreed on the settlement that they've just made was that they would abide by the squad cost rules over the next 3 years. And for every year that it doesn't, there'll be a fine, and also it'll roll forward to the following year, and it'll carry on until at least 2029 at this rate. So there's that.
So basically, just financial, which they are totally happy to take, because it's not a significant financial penalty for them.
Exactly.
And they'll shovel that loss into the parent company, and it'll just disappear into the ether.
Yeah, exactly. And the Premier League have, obviously, this is UEFA, so we need to know what the Premier League think of it and what the Premier League are going to do about it.
Well, the Premier League think and do is entirely irrelevant, because they're just patsies.
Yes. Oh, we know that. Yes, we know that. Absolutely. Villa, 9.5 million, 4.3 of it was for football earnings, and 5.2 million was for their squad cost breaches. I believe Barcelona have got something like 60 odd million pound hanging over them that they've agreed to pay back in installments, which they never will. Let's face it, that'll never happen. But that seems to be the gist of what's been going on there. It always amazes me that you've got a set of rules. You breach the rules. There must be rules laid down about what the penalties are, but then they go into a huddle and decide among themselves, let's negotiate the fine. It must be, how does that work? It should be. It shouldn't be a situation where you can decide for yourself, or you can come to some sort of agreement on what the fine is. You should be taking whatever's thrown at you. It shouldn't be like a negotiated fine. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. But we know what's going to happen. Ironic, it's the two clubs that have just sold their women's team as well. That there's another example of how they've got around this, and there'll be money there that'll help them out. And I suppose this, in a way, answers. Well, it doesn't answer, but it gives a little bit more understanding of some of the things that we have voiced on here for the last 2 years, which is Newcastle will always do everything by the book, through the front door, and we're not going to go out and do fancy deals that they'll put us into jeopardy, or look as though we're cocking a snoop at the authorities. We said that they would come in through the front door. They've always dealt with everything through the front door, and they're not in the picture of doing things the way that we've seen Chelsea doing, which some of our fans have been wanting us to do. Gloves are off type of thing, and let's go gung ho and take a rap on the knuckles. Well, a rap on the knuckles if you can't hide it through another company of 17.3 million, 9.5 million, and another 52. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's going to happen with Chelsea? I think they've got a squad of 8 goalkeepers. They've got 3 players for every outfield position, minimum. And that's the current squad. I think the squad is up to 49 at last count. And they are talking about buying another goalkeeper well, not buying them, but taking them on a free in terms of Martinez, ironically from Aston Villa.
Crazy, isn't it? They need to near 380 for their squad, says Chippers. You're not wrong, mate. 52 players, says Tim. So there we go. Yeah, Big Watson. I've seen this. The Scalvini link won't go away. It's another one which is up there. Scott Wilson running something on Twitter tonight. So yeah, I mean, fingers crossed it is true. Holloway Ben says, "Evening lads and lasses. I am playing catch up, but just on Mitch's point about Tonali on Longstaff, it was actually Longstaff was the most underrated player he's played with, period, not just at the club, which is, even bigger testament to young Sean from him as well. JJ, I did like your comment earlier as well. I didn't come back to it. He says, when do the lads think we'll sign this lad from Forest? It can't be much longer. Very good.
Ching.
Really good. Last question tonight, guys. Is it possible that the powers that be unknowingly brought the transfer window forward 2 weeks or so, allowing the clubs without PSR issues? For example, they didn't have to wait until the 1st of July before spending to have a free-for-all feeding frenzy to sign all the best players, while the rest of us could only watch. So, Steve, I'll come to you first on that.
Perfect example, Liverpool. Liverpool didn't have any PSR issues and managed to do their business very, very early. Well, look, they did it on the back of winning the Premier League. And if Liverpool come knocking on the door and said, "Do you want to come and play for us?" Then those players are going to say yes, the ones that they've gone for. So they've done their business early. They are notorious like that, mind. Some clubs do their business late. Manchester United is an interesting one. Not only have they not brought players in, but I've just read while I was looking up the Chelsea one that they've told Rashford not to come along on Monday. They've told Sancho don't bother turning up on Monday. They've told Garnacho don't turn up on Monday. So there's 3 of their big stars that they definitely want away. They've told Anthony, we don't want you either. Don't bother coming into training. Rashford's had his number taken away. He's not going to be wearing the number 10 because he's not going to be at the football club. Those players are either going to have to find new clubs or they're going to languish. Or Man United are virtually going to have to give them away.
Wow.
And it's a really, really strange situation to put yourself in, because now it's like if certain clubs do want them, they're going to go and lowball them. I wouldn't be going along if I was a club interested in Rashford saying, "I'll give you 40 million for him." Then, I'd be saying, "Look, the lad wants away. You're paying £350,000 a week in salary. I'll take him for 5 million or something like that if I was a club who was interested in him." And it's the same with all the others that they've got there. Malacia is another one. That's the 5 that they've told not to turn up. So it's yes. The problem with PSR is because you're always working on a year behind. You're never too sure what the situation is. You're relying on, unless you're a spreadsheet freak like our friend. Then it's very, very difficult to actually state or understand or have an inkling of what the situation is, because it's based on the previous sort of 3 years. And I just find the fact that we all have to be chartered accountants quite sort of demoralising when it comes to talking about football. I like the days when you could just say Supermac, £180,000. He's gone for 333,333. Simple things like that. I wonder where we would have been under PSR during the time when we were in the Fairs Cup.
Good point. Mitch, you dived off due to internet issues, but I kept the question there for you. Is it possible that the powers that be unknowingly brought the transfer window forward 2 weeks or so, allowing the clubs without PSR issues, given them the option to have a feeding frenzy to sign all the best players while the rest of us could only watch?
Well, they dressed it all up as being part of the window for the World Club Championship, which was, that just doesn't sit with me very well. Of course, it was to allow certain clubs to get away with whatever. I think going forward, the whole situation is very clearly messed up. And like Steve says, there's players who could quite comfortably turn around to their clubs and say, "Right, you don't want us, that's fine. I've got a contract with you. I'm just going to sit here and take it. Thanks. Thank you very much. I'm under no obligation to go anywhere or do anything that you say. You've given me this contract. You put me on this monthly salary. Pays till the end of the contract. Thank you very much. I'll just go home and I'll do my nails and I'll open my foundation for young people and get some people fed who are undersubscribed for school meals and what have you, and do some philanthropic stuff. If they've got any brain in their head, they'll do stuff like that, and that in turn would continue to make the club that's holding their contract look like total wankers. So I hope somebody's sitting down with some of these players and saying this, and saying, right, sit tight, you've got a contract, you're getting X amount, and you're under no obligation to sign for anybody, because that's your right, is having a contract with that club. You'll find out some players who are more interested in further in their career, but you'll also might find some players who've been treated horrendously, unfortunately, and it is a short career. I genuinely don't blame any player who wants to get the maximum out of what he can get with potentially a very short career that could be cut short by a single tackle. And so I find it fascinating for some of these clubs in the era of PSR. And when you've got a club like Man United, whose part owner is saying, we're nearly running out of money by Christmas, which was total bullshit, to be fair. But we all knew that was the case. However, they may be up against the gun in certain other ways. And let's see how far they can be squeezed until their pips squeak. And I'm going to quite enjoy that from the sidelines as a supporter of a club who has no issues like that. We did have issues like that. We got ourselves into that position last season. And when my pips squeaked, unfortunately, we had to do something that still doesn't sit well with the fan base right now, but we've got to get over that and move on. We're now talking about making significant signings. Trafford, Elanga, Scalvini, and more, potentially. And that's because we put ourselves in that position through a hell of a lot of hard graft on the playing side and through through the best season I've ever witnessed as a Newcastle United fan, and I still haven't had enough time to enjoy that, thank you very much, because everybody's stressing themselves about PSR and worrying about who we're going to sign tomorrow, and worrying about who Sunderland's signing and who's that signing, and sign him but not for that money and not that amount and not him, and I want an Adidas strip with a trefoil on, but not that colour, and I don't want that colourway, and I don't want that. We've all got to just chill and allow it to happen. At the end of the day. And we're in a really good position. And why are we in that position? We put ourselves in that position. That's the hard work of last season. That's the graft. That's the winning a cup. That's getting ourselves okay ridiculously on the last day of the season with a helping hand from Man United into Champions League, etc. But it shouldn't have been that way, and it probably, hopefully won't be that way again, because we'll learn from that. It's all about learning. It's about learning this new mindset about what being a winner is, that we have to learn as a fan base, we have to learn as a club, and we have to all learn together while that happens.
Yeah, lots of points coming in, lots of questions, and yes, we don't know for definite, but yeah, Newcastle might be doing that, and the Premier League might not be ratifying things like that, and of course it helps the Big Six out. And I've seen somebody else posting something about Tino. No discussions on here about who might leave and who might not. We tend not to talk about that. We're talking about Elanga because it's got some concrete feeling around it. We know the bid, so we can talk about that. The Tino one, there's no doubt that Pep Guardiola wanted Tino before he came to Newcastle. Would he tempt Newcastle with a bid? Possibly. Do you think Tino's going to really want to leave? I doubt it. You know, I'm not saying that there'll be players won't leave, but yeah, it would surprise me. Exactly, Mitch says, Benny, people have a go at Mbeumo for being greedy, but if he's getting 50 grand a week more elsewhere over 5 years, it's another 13 million for him before tax, admittedly. And yeah, Yano says, given all the complaints regarding our ownership, why is there no outcry against PIF sponsorship at the Club World Cup? I have seen people complaining
duplicity,
about that.
you know,
Yeah.
duplicity, an absolute lack of understanding of how the world works, how business works, and it's quite frankly wrong, because we were anointed as a fan base the arbiters of everything in terms of human rights and everything else in sport about 3 or 4 years ago, when it was total bullshit then, and it's still total bullshit now.
Yeah. Thoughts, George? You know, clearly that, you know, that mini window was definitely open to help others, wasn't it? Not to help Newcastle.
Well, clearly, and the notion that it was just about the Club World Cup suddenly started to wear thin when he saw what was happening and who was doing it, and it, you know, it just looks like a painful excuse which they're having to defend now. And as to the things elsewhere, well, there's the old saying, you reap what you sow, and that's Manchester United at the moment, I'm afraid, as far as I'm concerned. The management of their club over the last few years has been diabolical, absolutely diabolical. And how can they be running out of money by last November, and then suddenly, you know, we're into March, into July the next year, and they're trying to buy players for 50, 60 million pounds plus. The sums just don't add up, unless, of course, there's a smoke screen. And as Neil rightly says, maybe they want the payoff from the Elanga transfer so they can do something else, something else elsewhere. The whole thing's in a mess at the moment, and I just have a feeling that somebody will pull the wrong Jenga brick out, and the whole Premier League issue and all of these issues we're talking about will come tumbling down. And some of the things I talked about yesterday were sneaking out about things that are now being declared illegal, like the fair value things and for sponsorship, etc., are now being declared illegal. Well, that can only go on so long before people just get fed up. And I'm sure they're the issues that our owners will be watching like hawks. And as regards the issue about PIF and the Club World Cup, Neil's absolutely right. How short-sighted are these people? If PIF are going to be doing anything in football, Newcastle United would be the star in the crown. Why wouldn't we be? They're very, very loyal people. They've said that their chairman has said what he wants for us. So why not? The sport generally all over the world has PIF written all over it at the moment, and but we're still going to be, in my opinion, the star in the crown, the jewel in the crown of what they're doing in football. So that bit doesn't worry me at all. In fact, I think people have been extremely short-sighted, and the human rights stuff is just a pain in the backside as far as I'm concerned, because look over your shoulder, folks, and look what's happening in your own country, never mind what's happening in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, it's a nuisance, some of the things that are going on, but because of the position we're in, and Neil's absolutely right, we put ourselves in, we're stronger for it, and we'll benefit in the long run. Our upset the last time was more out of, in my opinion, was more out of football naivety on PIF's part rather than financial naivety. I think they thought they could solve a problem in a particular way because they haven't the years of experience of managing a Premier League club. I tell you what, it will never happen again to us because they'll be sharp learners. They'll know what to do in future. So none of that bothers me as a Newcastle fan because we're in such a strong position. And like my son, I've got to say, still enjoying the fact that we did so well last year. We won a trophy. The only team in the country to win more games than us last year was the champions. If we'd performed half as well at home as we should have done, we would have been chasing them. We would have been chasing them. Well, it's a long time since we've been able to say that about any Newcastle team and have a trophy. So I'm still enjoying it. And there's nothing happening out there in the world at the moment that's upsetting me terribly. Because I'm convinced Eddie and his team have got things in the pipeline. We'll just wait for them dropping out.
You know what? We'll never know, Steve. We'll never know whether the departure of Paul Mitchell stalled anything.
Yeah,
we'll never know that.
No.
That will never come out. We'll never know. What we did know that was that at the end of the season, Eddie said he wanted business done early. We all presumed he meant in the first window. We then thought perhaps he meant, when nothing happened, that he meant early in the second window. I think probably what he really meant was, and like most managers, we're going back into pre-season training on Monday. And I think, like most managers, they would want to have new players there at the start of pre-season training. The caveat there would be, well, you've got a number of players who have been on international duty, so it's not everybody coming back. So, you know, that's when it steps back another week, another 10 days or whatever it is. And so you get the whole squad together. So you could be looking at the fact that, you know, another 14 days before you'd want everybody there, everybody available to go on the pre-season tour, the pre-season training camp, have everybody there to learn the ropes that Mitch was talking about and understanding the systems and the methodology and the code words and, you know, using that sort of the signals, as Mitch said, based on like sort of gridiron. And I think that when you look back in history and you see players that have arrived just before the window has closed, when it's been Eddie, those players have tended to then be kind of not come in straight away and not been seen till October. And we can't afford that.
Yeah.
We want everything sorted for the start of the Champions League. You know, we need players in. We need players settled in. We need them bedded in. We need them in their houses. We need their families here, and we need them ready for 2 games a week, minimum. So, it's a conundrum, I suppose, that we'll never resolve. We'll never get to the bottom of. But I have my suspicions. But it will be purely speculation. It'll probably just cause a bomb to go off.
Yeah, avoid speculation at all costs. We're going to finish with Elliot. My wife just told me she's broken her sat-nav and wants £150 for a new one. She can get lost.
Oh,
good stuff. Thank you to everybody tuning in. 1,300 of you on a regular basis all the way through that show tonight live. If you are enjoying it, jump onto YouTube, search NUFC Matters and hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. We avoid speculation. We keep it calm, and we've got a great chat with great moderators, a friendly community. And if you want to come along and join us live at the end of the month for the Cup final replay, it'll get in good fettle for the start of the new season. Go to nufcmatters.co.uk and you will be able to register for your free ticket to come along and potentially win a replica Carabao Cup medal. We've also got a load of signed memorabilia up there now. Lots of people saying, can you put some on? Can you put some on? The Shearer prints, Beardsley prints, etc. up there for 25, 30 quid to get yourself on there. Have a little look. tonight while you can. Have a great weekend. Mitch, I will see you bright and early. Well, maybe won't see. I'll see you. You won't see me with Mr. Penman. It's 8:30 in the morning for the professionals. A rather bizarre time, but it's the only day we could all do it, and the only time we could all do it. And look forward to seeing George and Steve again next week. Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.